Wineland.
Pretty technical fight thus far. Both parties finding some success and finding the home with the jab, but Wineland there putting a combination together. So significant strikes upstairs from both guys here in an entertaining first round.
Wineland was talking about his power, and he said that once Jorgensen feels his power, it's going to be over. But so far, Wineland hasn't been able to finish, but he's demonstrated his power on a couple different occasions.
So we're ready for our second round here. Scott Jorgensen and Eddie Wineland. You heard Joe Warren in the corner of Scott Jorgensen. Very verbal and not mincing words. He thinks they're behind on the scorecards.
And he let him know, most importantly, John, that he needs to get on the inside. And there he is. He got on the inside, landed.
UFC comes to MTS Center in Winnipeg for the first time on Saturday, June 15th, as UFC interim bantamweight champion Renan Barao meets hard-hitting former champion Eddie Wineland. Barao is on an incredible 20-fight winning streak, while Wineland has the division's most dangerous one-punch knockout power. Plus, Rashad Evans battles Dan Henderson, and Shogun Rua takes on Rogerio Nogueira. UFC 161, Barao versus Wineland, live from MTS Center. Tickets on sale this Friday at Ticketmaster.ca.
Sure that up. I think it's working. Again, thank you, Steve, and thanks everybody for being here today and for all the applause for the fighters. I know that wasn't for me, nor was it for the Metropolitan Entertainment Center, but thank you. Welcome to the Metropolitan Entertainment Center right here in downtown Winnipeg, Manitoba, next to our MTS Center. Good afternoon to all of you here and to those of you who are watching online. A short time ago, True North Sports and Entertainment, in conjunction with the Ultimate Fighting Championship, proudly announced another exciting new entertainment product for the Winnipeg marketplace. The world's foremost leader in mixed martial arts entertainment would be coming to the MTS Center on June 15th with the event of UFC number 161. That announcement, as we said then, marked the victory for the Winnipeg marketplace, one that all of us at True North are absolutely thrilled about. Since 2008, there have only been 11 UFC events in Canada and only 4 Canadian host cities entertaining at these live events over 200,000 Canadian fans, with millions more watching globally on pay-per-view. Winnipeg, as you now know, will become only the 5th Canadian host city on UFC's global tour. 2013 will see only 3 stops for the UFC in Canada, which will include Winnipeg. UFC 161 will be the largest TV audience for any event in Manitoba. As UFC's programming is broadcast in over 145 countries and over 28 languages, your MTS Center will again be at the center stage for what will be a global pay-per-view event. With that in mind, True North and the MTS Center are excited to bring another first to our city, a product we intentionally waited for it until we could bring the best of the best to Winnipeg, the premium asset, the most recognized worldwide brand in the sport. These fighters, the leading global organization in the sector, the UFC. Today we're here to reveal much more about this highly anticipated event and to introduce you to some of the fighters and allow them to showcase some of their hardware. While some details have been released, we're excited to bring faces to the names on the card and formally reveal to anxious fans the prices of tickets for UFC 161. We are joined today by several fighters that will take center stage in the Octagon on June 15th, including 2 men who will square off in the main event at our MTS Center. It is our pleasure as well to welcome back to Winnipeg the UFC Director of Canadian Operations and Australia and New Zealand, Mr. Tom Wright. Tom as I think all of you in the audience should know, is no stranger to our city and is a huge fan of Canada. Prior to joining the UFC, Tom was formerly the head of Adidas in Canada, the Solomon Group of companies in North America, and was, of course, the 11th commissioner of our own CFL. So on behalf of all of us at True North Sports and Entertainment, the Winnipeg Jets, and our related companies, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome on stage again, Mr. Tom Wright.
Thanks very much, Jim. It's fabulous to be back here in Winnipeg. It's lovely. You take a look out today. The temperature is approaching zero. The sun is shining. The Jets won. I mean, it couldn't be a better day to be here in Winnipeg. But you know what? It was about 5 weeks ago that I was here introducing and announcing the fact that we were bringing the UFC to Manitoba, to the city of Winnipeg for the first time. On June the 15th, when UFC 161 comes. And I remember distinctly the first question that I was asked. The first question I was asked was, who's on the card? And I could only say that at that time that the light heavyweight fight between Shogun Rua and Little Nog Rogerio Nogueira would be on. But now, 5 short weeks later, thanks to the magic of Dana White and our matchmaker Sean Shelby and our matchmaker Joe Silva, we have a terrific card, a fantastic card to announce, and we have the pleasure of bringing the main event, our interim bantamweight championship between Renan Barao and Eddie Wineland here today, who is joined on the stadium, on the podium this morning with our first woman fighter to compete in Canada for the UFC. Alexis Davis from Port Colborne, Ontario. So before I'm going to ask the guys and girls to make a few comments, and before I open up to questions, I just want to talk a bit about the card that Dana and Joe and Sean have put together for UFC 161, which is, again, to remind everybody, it's June the 15th. It's going to be over at the MTS Center. Some of us had the chance to go to the Jets game last night. It's going to be a fabulous environment for our sport, a fabulous environment for Manitobans and Winnipeggers to have a chance to witness our fighters and our sport firsthand for the first time here. But starting with the main event, the interim championship, interim bantamweight championship of the world for the UFC, featuring our current interim champion, Renan Barao from Rio de Janeiro. Renan is an amazing athlete. He has an incredible record of 32-1 with 1 no contest from Rio de Janeiro. His record is amazing. He's no stranger to Canada. At least Canada's no stranger to Renan. His first, he won the interim bantamweight championship at UFC 149 in Calgary back in July last year. So he knows what it's like to fight here. He knows what it's like to be in Western Canada. He understands how competitive and how knowledgeable our fans are here. He's looking so much forward to this event. And on my left, Eddie Wineland. Eddie is also no stranger to Canada. Eddie had his first experience at WEC 49 in Edmonton back in June of 2010, where he fought. So he knows, understands Western Canada. He understands how knowledgeable our fans are here. And I'm excited about the opportunity to watch these two guys headline an amazing card. Next to that, as I said earlier, this is the first opportunity that Canadian fight fans will have to be on Canada's soil to watch our great female fighters compete. Alexis Davis, who is from Port Colborne, Ontario, will be fighting against Rosie Sexton, who's our first ever fighter from the UK. Alexis has 2 black belts, one in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, one in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She's a submission artist, and she's very much looking forward to not only representing her province and her city, but her country, and being the first ever to be able to compete on a main event card here in Winnipeg against Rosie Sexton. That's going to be a great event. And then you take a look at the other 3 events on our main card. It's going to be an amazing night of fights. There's a total of 7 Canadians on the card who will also be competing, and I guarantee you, if you haven't had a chance to see one of our events live, as Dana White would say, always says, you've got to see it live to really understand how incredibly exciting, how high energy, how amazing these athletes are when they come out to compete and they come out to show the world and this province and city just how great these athletes are. So before I turn it over to the media for some questions, I'm just going to ask each of the fighters to say a few words about how they feel about their first opportunity to compete here, and I'm going to start with Alexis.
It's great to be back in Winnipeg. This is where it all started for me. This is where I had my very first MMA fight, and I'm truly honored to have my UFC debut back here. So I thank you very much for the UFC, Dana White, and Sean Shelby for giving me this opportunity.
Okay. Eddie?
Being back in Canada is awesome. The last time I was in Canada, the Canadian fans were absolutely amazing and super loud, super knowledgeable, and it's going to be exciting and super fun to fight in front of you guys, and I can't wait.
Estou muito feliz de estar fazendo o evento aqui. Essa minha terceira luta, eu acho que a estreia internacional no Canadá, a conquista do segundo período também. Então, eu vou vir aí super bem preparado aí para dar uma melhor, dar um show aí para todos vocês.
We have a translator for Renan, Mauricio.
He's very happy to be in Canada, in Winnipeg. He's very happy to be in Winnipeg, in Canada, and he's training very hard, and he wants to make a very good show for everybody, and he enjoys the visit to the arena and the Jets game yesterday.
Okay, great. Okay, we've got a microphone here that Steve Keogh has. Who's got the first question? Please raise your hand and tell me who you are, where we are.
Hi, it's Gabriel Santos from MMACanada.net. I just have a question for Renan and Eddie. Can you both talk about your training and preparations for this fight, and why each of you guys think you have the advantage over the fight? Thanks.
Okay, we'll start with Renan. Go ahead, Mauricio.
Gabriel tem uma pergunta para você. Ele gostaria de saber como que você está se preparando, os seus treinamentos para essa luta.
Graças a Deus, estou preparando super bem. Estou dando o meu melhor. O meu objetivo é uma pessoa que eu estou preparando 100%. Mais boxe, mais luta, jiu-jitsu, mais progresso. E estou sempre focado aí
Renan said he's training, preparing 100%. He's training his boxing, jiu-jitsu, his academy. The training is going okay back in Rio.
Is that my turn?
It's your turn.
My training for this fight it's no different than any other fight. We're training just like we normally train, a little more grappling, we're going to push a little harder. Obviously, it's a 25-minute fight. Not that I intended to go 25 minutes, but for 25 minutes we'll be ready for it. I think I'm stronger. I think I'm faster. I think I hit harder. I think I'm the better wrestler. You know, on June 15th, we're going to find out who has the advantage.
Thank you.
I have a question for Alexis Davis, Cam Hallis after the Buzzer Sports Show. What are your thoughts on Fallon Fox, and is she someone that you'd be interested in fighting?
You know, I don't really think for myself that I can really give a good comment on that. I think I'm ignorant when it comes to the biology of the human body when they're going through that sort of transition and change. But would I fight her if she dropped down to 135? I would highly consider. I pretty much would fight anybody. So you know, she gets up in the rankings and kind of comes across my path. It's not too much of a problem for me. I train with guys every day, and you know, like I said, I can't really say too much in regards to it. With the whole, how much the body changes and how much strength they're going to have and testosterone levels, it's a hard question to answer.
Fair enough.
Hi, Hi, it's Angela Johnson with CBC News. I just have a question for Tom Wright and maybe the fighters if they have anything to add. We know that a Canadian fighter died in a fight over the weekend, I believe in Michigan. And so we're just wondering if there's any reaction. Do you feel this casts a black eye on the sport? And just generally what you make of fighters who want to make it in the UFC going down to these unsanctioned fights?
Well, to start off, I mean, first and foremost, our thoughts and condolences go to Pablo's family. It was a tragic incident that happened. For those of you who are not aware, there was an Ontario athlete that competed in an unregulated amateur mixed martial arts event in Port Huron, Michigan. And unfortunately, following the fight, he passed away. What we don't know is whether or not there were any pre-existing medical conditions that Pablo was suffering from, and in a regulated environment we would have known that. We also don't know whether or not the referees were properly trained. We don't know whether or not there were the appropriate EMTs and ambulance and medical precautions in place. We don't even know whether it was a fair fight. In as much as the two competitors were evenly balanced. And those are the kinds of things that we would know if the sport had been regulated, if the event had been regulated. And it speaks to the importance of regulation in our sport, why it's important that we have the appropriate kind of rigor and standards, and from medical care, from pre and post-fight medical testing to drug testing to ensuring that the health and safety of these athletes is always first and foremost. And in the case of an unregulated event, you don't know whether those things are in place, which is why we as an organization have always run to regulation. When we started here in Canada, there were many provinces that we weren't. When we took over in the United States, there were only 2 states out of 50 that regulated our sport. It's important that we protect the health and safety of our athletes. It's important that our sport is properly regulated. And I think, if anything, what the tragic events of last Friday underscore the importance of that regulation.
Gabriel Gosselin, Radio-Canada, Winnipeg. This question is for Alexis. I'm wondering, you just mentioned that you had your first MMA fight here in Winnipeg. Do you anticipate having a hometown crowd advantage for your bout? And I'm also wondering what you think of holding the fight here in Canada, having a first women's fight, what it'll do in the country for the promotion of the sport for women.
I feel, of course, I have the hometown advantage, being as my opponent, of course, from the UK, but it's, you know, the fans out in Winnipeg, they're incredible. It was incredible to even watch the Jets game last night, but regardless, I think it's a fan sport, and they're just going to be cheering to watch the fight, regardless of who's fighting. And it's a huge honor to be able to have this opportunity to actually fight back in Canada. I haven't fought in Canada in a couple of years, so I'm glad to make my UFC debut back here, and you know, it's just going to help the sport grow and more, especially now that we're having more women being on the main card. So it's just, you know, for those fighters that are kind of coming up, the amateur fighters, this is what they can kind of look forward to.
With Global News here. This question is for Tom. Bit of a two-parter. Is Winnipeg one of the smallest, if not the smallest, market to host a UFC event in North America? And secondly, the Canadian market of, well, we'll call similar size, and Calgary hosted a big event last year. But in the end, it was considered somewhat of a disappointment, mainly because some bouts fell through, I believe. How do you avoid that letdown when you prepare the card for Winnipeg?
You know, I haven't done I didn't do a sort of a geography assessment relative to other North American cities. But, you know, I'll use an MMA or a boxing metaphor. I mean, I think as a city, Winnipeg punches above its weight. You know, as a sports town, it's a great sports town. Everybody knows that. From the Jets to the Bombers, it's hosted 2 Pan Ams, 3 Grey Cups, countless world championships, and it's a very, very knowledgeable fan base here. So I was very, very confident in recommending Winnipeg to Lorenzo and Dana as a site for the UFC. And frankly, when you take a look at it, it's one of 3 cities around the world. I mean, you talk about, you know, how does it compare in North America? I mean, Winnipeg is being, you know, in the same peer group as Stockholm and Tokyo and Sydney and Rio de Janeiro, all these other places that have held events. And so, you know, from that perspective, you know, I think that, you know, Winnipeg's going to be a great market. It's already proven that. And I'm absolutely confident that the entire fight week of, you know, leading up to June 15th is going to be great. And then, you know, you ask about the card, and I was saying it earlier. I mean, this card is an amazing card when you take a look at it. You know, apart from these 2 great bantamweights that are going to be fighting for the interim bantamweight championship, and our first ever bantamweight women's fight, just on the main card alone, and you take a look at the 13 fights we have, there's a total of 24 individual times that the fighters on this card have headlined main events. We've got, in terms of the light heavyweights on this card, we've got number 4, number 5, number 6, and number 7 ranked in the world that will be competing on this card. So you've got Shogun versus Little Nog. You've got Dan Henderson against Rashad Evans. I mean, Evans himself has been a main event guy 10 different times. You've got 2 former Strikeforce champions. You've got 2 former Pride champions. You've got 2 former UFC champions. You've got a former WEC champion. You've got a total of 7 Canadians that are on this card, representing the heartland of our country, from Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan, and Edmonton, and Calgary, I mean, and Alberta. It's going to be a great card. I have absolutely no doubt that fans across this city and across this province, and as you guys know, fans for the UFC come from across this country, in fact, this continent, they're going to be absolutely thrilled with what happens over at the MTS Center in a couple of months.
Question for both Renan and Eddie. Not looking past your current opponent, but given the outcome of the upcoming fight, would you expect a title unification fight with Dominic Cruz as the next logical fight for the winner of this fight?
I will let Renan go first.
Hello. A pergunta para você, Renan, é não olhando somente nessa luta, mas olhando à frente, você acha que a próxima luta com o Dominic é uma coisa que você está pensando em acontecer?
Eu acho que com certeza, né? Mas o meu pensamento agora, o foco agora, o objetivo é contra essa luta contra o Wineland. Eu acho que Dominic vai ser mais para frente aí, tomara que aconteça essa luta aí, não só eu, como muitas pessoas querem ver esse grande desafio aí, né? Mas o objetivo mesmo, o pensamento agora é nessa luta aí contra o Wineland.
Currently, he's looking at this fight first and foremost. After that, then yeah, definitely to Dominic, and not only that, but he's young and his whole career, the other fights. But for now, like he said, his focus is the next fight.
My turn now.
You want the question?
Yeah, you know, I think so. Not looking past Renan, you know, he's a tough opponent, and given that I beat him, I think depending on Dominic Cruz, you know, it all depends on his doctors. You know, if he's not healthy to compete, he's not healthy to compete. That being said, getting past him, you know, I wouldn't want to lay inactive. So, you know, whatever the UFC decides is supposed to be is going to be, and I don't want to lay sidelined.
How's it going, guys? It's Big Marv, 103.1 Virgin Radio. Couple statements. Alexis, I just want to say you are absolutely beautiful. Eddie, that is a fantastic mustache. Like, really, win. And Renan, apologies that Winnipeg is so cold. I know you're from Brazil, and it's April, and it shouldn't be this cold. So I wanted to let you know that there's an all-you-can-eat meat Brazilian barbecue place. It's just on Waterfront. It's Carnival Brazilian barbecue, so you want a little taste of home. Just looking out for you, man.
Renan,
Big Marv.
Renan, Renan. Renan, ele quis...
Next question.
Hello.
I think we have... Oh, sorry.
Ele disse para você, Renan, e para os outros dois lutadores que para você ficar sabendo que aqui o Winnipeg não é só o frio agora de abril, mas nós temos um restaurante brasileiro que abriu agora, uma churrascaria, que você pode se deliciar lá também, e no verão vai ser mais quente.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Boa comigo.
Question for Tom Wright. City Councillor Grant Nordman is making waves in local papers again, calling for a ban in local MMA in the city of Winnipeg. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, I haven't heard that, but I think that our approach on our sport is exemplified by these athletes, and it's exemplified on how we approach it. Our sport is a young sport. It's only about 12 years old compared to football and hockey that are 120 years old. But it's a highly competitive sport. Our sport features athletes, professional athletes that train as hard, if not harder, than any other professional athlete that you'll ever find. They're great competitions. These individuals are martial artists, and they compete at a very, very high level. And they respect their sport, but they respect their opponents and they respect their communities. And in the end, what we're trying to do is make sure that this sport is provided the opportunity to properly grow. And in properly growing, we give the opportunity to make sure that it's properly regulated, it's properly controlled, that the right kind of disciplines are put into place so that the sport is allowed to grow and compete on a regular basis. And so that's what I would say to him.
Gabriel Gosselin again with Radio-Canada. This question is for Renan and Eddie. Well, first of all, welcome both gentlemen. Bon dia, benvenido a Winnipeg, Renan. And it's true, the buffet is very, very good. I'm just curious to know, Eddie, you had mentioned that you thought the fans in Canada were very knowledgeable. How does that really help you in your fight? How does that make a difference to have a knowledgeable fan base as a fighter?
The knowledgeable fan base, I think that really gives me an advantage. I just think it's better for the sport. If you're going to follow the sport, I think they have a very knowledgeable fan base, and you don't hear a lot of the booing, and I think that encourages the fight to continue on, and for the fighters to continue doing what they're trying to do rather than try to make it fancy and put a show on, which you want to come and put a show on, but you also want to get the win. And having a knowledgeable fan base, I think, allows to keep that going.
A mesma pergunta para você, Renan. Primeiramente, ele quis dizer muito bem-vindos aos dois lutadores a Winnipeg. E a pergunta seria sobre o conhecimento dos torcedores, que tem muito conhecimento sobre toda a qualidade dos torcedores. Isso tem alguma influência na luta?
Entendi. Pode repetir mais uma vez, por favor?
O conhecimento dos torcedores sobre os lutadores, né? Tem alguma influência na luta para quem eles vão torcer mais ou não?
Eu acho que com certeza. Eu já pude presenciar algumas lutas do Ed. Eu acho que é um cara duro, um cara que vem mostrando que tá no lugar certo aí para disputar para disputar o cinturão, né? Então, eu acho que é isso. Acho que a gente vai dar um show a todo o público. Acho que é isso.
Renan thinks that the public are very knowledgeable, and they're here, both Eddie, Renan, to put a good show, and the fans know that. But he knows the quality of Eddie, and that it could go. The fan base could go any which way.
Mike Urich, QX104 and 103.1 Virgin Radio. It's a question for Eddie. Do Do you have any added pressure on yourself when training, knowing that this is not only a title fight and not only a 5-round fight and not only headlining UFC pay-per-view, but the first fight in a market like Winnipeg for the UFC? And a second question would be, being this weekend fight between Uriah Faber and Scott Jorgensen, you fought them both. Can I get a pick on who you think is going to win that fight?
Yeah, no real added pressure. I mean, yeah, it's for a belt. It's 25 minutes. You know, every fight that I'm in, I feel I could fight for 25 minutes. So, I mean, the conditioning, as the round goes on, it's going to be in my favor. You know, it just... No, I kind of forgot the question that you asked, but
being that it's the first fight in Winnipeg, a new market for the UFC, do you have any extra pressure on yourself trying to represent the company here?
We're gonna just train like it's a normal fight. You know, it's again, every fight I feel I could fight for 25 minutes. So you know, there's no pressure. I think I train better when there's no pressure. And the Scott Jorgensen Uriah Faber fight, it's a tough fight. I mean, they're both good wrestlers. They're both strong. They both got a good base. Yeah, I'm going to pick Uriah just because I think he's a little faster, a little more explosive.
Gabriel Santos from MMAcanada.net for Alexis Davis. Have you done any different training going in, knowing this is a big fight, your first fight in Winnipeg? You know, have you trained with different people, or you know, just stick to the same regiment?
Well, my training's it's kind of changed a lot since moving out to California. I've been able to, I think, utilize a lot more skills and being able to control the fight a lot better. But I think for this fight in particular, I think cardio, it's all going to be cardio. Rosie, you know, obviously, I've already started studying a lot of her fights. She's nonstop. She's like the Energizer Bunny. She just keeps going. And she's got a very, you know, vicious ground and pound. And it's obviously with every, you know, fight that you take, you're going to have to change your camp a bit more. And I think that's something I'm really going to have to push.
Just a couple more questions from the media, then we'll take some questions from the fans. Go ahead.
All right, my name is Bernice Pontanilla from Metro. I just had a question for Renan. Just wondering if he is aware that there is a big Brazilian and Latin American community here in Winnipeg, and what he would tell those fans, like is he hoping for them to come out and support him during that fight? Thank you.
Ela disse que tem uma comunidade de brasileiros latinos numerosa, grande aqui em Winnipeg. E se você espera que eles venham torcer para você na luta? Se os brasileiros e os latinos que moram aqui em Winnipeg vêm torcer para você na sua luta?
Muito obrigado. Fico muito feliz quanto a isso. Acho que quanto mais energia positiva, eu acho que você vai me fortalecer cada vez mais lá em cima.
Thank you. He thanks that, and yes, he's expected that everyone that comes in will cheer up for him, and that will cheer him up too.
Any more questions from the media?
Hi, for Barao, what is your hours from morning to afternoon? What is your workout? Like, what do you do first? What's the first thing you do?
Ele gostaria de saber como você treina, quais os seus horários, o que você faz primeiramente no seu dia a dia.
Meu dia a dia é muito duro, né? A gente procura treinar bastante. Passo o dia, bem dizer, inteiro na academia, acordo de manhã cedo e começo fazendo umas coisas que eu, desde o começo, que é o meu jiu-jitsu, que eu nunca deixo de lado, né? Começo treinando jiu-jitsu, depois eu intensificar na parte de boxe, muay thai e a parte de preparação física, mas eu sempre começo na parte de jiu-jitsu, que é uma coisa que eu nunca deixo de mão.
The training is very hard. He starts very early every day, and different sections, jiu-jitsu, muay thai, boxing. He trains away from his hometown, away from the family. So 2-3 months he's away. and but training, always thinking, always training.
Hi, my name is Brian. Message for, I guess for the UFC, welcome to Winnipeg. Big UFC fan, but message to Eddie. Been watching your fight for a while, and I hope you have a successful and get the belt. The question is, you're gonna be not gonna be gun shy, I guess. You're gonna just let it fly.
Gun shy?
Yeah.
No, I don't think I'm gonna have any problem pulling the trigger. You know, it's you watch the Jorgens fight, you watch the Pickett fight. I didn't have any problem letting my hands go, and this is gonna be no different. You know, go in there and make it ugly, get in his face, and just kind of be the bully.
Okay, we're gonna take one more question, then we're going to square off the fighters.
This is a question for Tom Wright. I was wondering if I can put the belt on the champion on June 15th.
I missed the question. What do you want? Say again?
If you could put the belt on the champ, June 15th.
You know, those decisions are made by my boss. It's at a different pay grade than I. So, but I'll bring it up with Dana when I see him. But you know what? But before we finish, there's a couple of things I just wanted to say. First and foremost, I want to thank the media for coming out today. You know, we couldn't do what we do. We couldn't build our sport. We couldn't connect with our fans were it not for the support that we get from you. And of course, to our fans, thank you very much for supporting us. As you probably know, tickets went on sale this morning at 10 o'clock Central Time to Fight Club members. They'll be going to newsletters on tomorrow at 10 o'clock Central Time, and to the public on Ticketmaster through our good friends over at the MTS Center on Friday, April the 12th at 10 o'clock Central Time. And one last shout out. I mean, I think that it's great to have our athletes here. I can tell you that Rosie Sexton, who will be competing against Alexis on June the 15th here, wanted to be here. She didn't find out that she was going to be fighting against Alexis until late last week. And she's, as you know, is from England. She would love to have been here. Just want to give her a shout out. It was actually her 9-year-old son's birthday yesterday, so and I understand what it's like to have children and want to make sure we take care of them. But in the end, I think both Rosie and Alexis, as well as Eddie and Renan and the rest of the 22 fighters on this card, are going to put on a terrific event on June the 15th here in Winnipeg. Thank you very much, Winnipeg. Thank you very much, Manitoba, for having us. And I'm going to square these fighters off now.
Okay, thanks to the fighters. A couple quick notes. The fighters are going to stay here up on the stage for some media interviews. If you have a white wristband, you can come up on the stage. We're going to put each fighter in front of their banner and we'll put Alexis in the middle. And then also